some reason, I'm really nervous doing this video. It has taken me 2 months to script out and write out and research this musical, and I got to the point where I said, okay, I'm done. There's so much information that I am taking in, and now at this point it's just a constant overflow of information, and I can't focus anymore. I just need to move on. So this is not going to be the best video essay I've ever made, but I at least hope it somewhat makes sense. But let's just get started. When people focus on political topics like feminism, because unfortunately that topic has become pretty political in the last couple of decades, people tend to focus on the negative qualities of that topic. So for example, with feminism, all the pain that comes with being a woman, all the things that women have to go through that men don't. And while women have gone through a lot in history, and in particular have gone through some crazy situations in America, that's all true. People tend to ignore the positive aspects of feminism, the good things that come with being a woman. People tend to focus on the hardships rather than the victories that come after. And this was something I noticed while I was researching not just the 9 to 5 story, but also the 9 to 5 movement. And while I am going to acknowledge some of the negative aspects of this topic, I want to focus on the positives of what happens when women band together and make a difference. What happens when instead of focusing on being a victim, you focus on being an overcomer? Now, before we go any further into the video, I want to state that though this conversation deals with political themes, this video essay's main focus is on the 9 to 5 story, and I am making this for fun. If you have any issues with the opinions that I have, and I don't know, start getting angry or something, please stop watching. This essay is meant to be a fun review on the 9 to 5 story and why it became the classic it is today. Why do people like this story and its characters so much? And while I can't speak for everyone, I can speak for myself and talk about why I believe many people, not just women, love this incredible story. Enjoy the video. Now, before we get into the story, I think it would be helpful to provide some historical context on why 9 to 5 was created in the first place. And please note, because this is history, I may skip over some points, forgotten some key events, misread some important information that I did not put in this video, so please do your own research on this movement. And while we are on the topic, I am not going to talk about the history of women's rights, because that would take up the entire video. I am going to focus on what is considered the second wave of feminism, which happened in the 1960s to 1980s. So once upon a time, a long time ago, I'm not going to do that. This is history, not a fairy tale. Before the development of this historic movement, the American government already passed some laws to eliminate sex-based discrimination in the workplace. These laws were the Equal Pay Act of 1963 and the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The Equal Pay Act of 1963, or known as the EPA, is a law that prohibits employers from discriminating against other employers based on sex, basically saying that men and women are equal, so they need to be paid equally. The EPA was introduced in the U.S. Senate by Patrick McNamara and was signed into law by President John F. Kennedy on June 10, 1963. Its purpose was to correct the wage gap, prevent labor disputes, to ensure labor resources are used to their full potential, and it gives the individual the right to file a claim in court under the EPA if they believe they have been paid unfairly. The Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 further prohibits employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Its purpose was to prohibit discrimination based on stereotypes and assumptions about a person's ability or performance, make decisions excluding minorities, denying equal employment opportunity, and requires accommodations for employees with disabilities. The U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or known as the EEOC, was created to prevent any unlawful employment discrimination. And just to note, the Title VII has been amended multiple times as the workplace has drastically changed in the 1960s. Despite these laws that took place, many work environments did not implement them into their workspaces. Working women felt underappreciated, disrespected, and unseen. Please note, at this point forward, the timeline gets a bit iffy, as some sources say Event A happens at this time and Event B happens during this event, while another source says something completely different, so I'm going to give you the basic rundown and you can do your own research from here. So, across America, women started gathering together to discuss their first-hand experiences in the workplace. Many started to realize they have all experienced some sort of misogyny and mistreatment from their bosses, and decided to take action to fight against these issues. Some of these ladies were Karen Nussbaum and Ellen Cassidy, who decided to start a newsletter called 9 to 5 Newsletter for Boston Area Office Workers to advocate for women's rights. And there were many, many more who stepped up to the plate. Seriously, watch the documentaries on this. It's crazy what these women have gone through. Women that became members of the Organization for Women Office Workers gathered together to create a new bill to protect women office workers. This bill would be called the Bill of Rights for Women Office Workers, and it concluded the following rights: respect as an office worker and as a woman, a written job description, a detailed account of employment conditions and compensation, maternity benefits, equal pay for similar jobs, access promotions, and many other opportunities. Basically, the bill was to help clarify and map out the goals of the women's movement. So, once it was drafted in 1974, the members testified at the hearing on the working conditions of women office workers in Boston. This effort increased public awareness and legislative attention to the challenges women faced in the workplace. Now, between the years of 1973 to 1983, the Organization for Women Office Workers went through several different developments, merging with different organizations to continue their goals. They joined with the Service Employees International Union, or known as the SEIU, the nationwide labor union for office workers, which then created a sister movement called Local 9 to 5. This was created for the purpose to have a powerful social and political advocate for office workers. Local 9 to 5 created a way for women to obtain insurance in banking, to eliminate discriminatory pay, and promote unionization. They also joined with Cleveland Women Working to create the Working Women Organizing Project, to advocate equal pay and rights for women in the workplace, while also doing research for the following: able to testify in court, console women on its own 9 to 5 job problem hotline, educate women about legal rights, initiate federal investigations and employment practices, hold government hearings, publish class action charges against employers, increase office security and equipment safety, and overall, increase public awareness of the problems women face in the workplace. By 1983, the organization was officially named 9 to 5 National Association for Working Women, headed by Karen Nussbaum from 1977 to 1993. After these victories, 9 to 5 focused on issues like autonomation, pay inequities, medical leave, racial discrimination, and sexual harassment in the 1980s and 1990s. And to bring awareness to these issues, 9 to 5 published all kinds of fact sheets, newsletters, and books, and used the rise of television to draw attention to sexual harassment cases in America. Since then, 9 to 5 continues to actively promote workplace policies and advocate for working women and families. I hope you all liked that little history lesson. I put a lot of time into that, so you're welcome. It was honestly shocking how little information there was out there about this movement. Like, honestly, it was hard to find some of this information. Anyways, and because of this historical movement and the experiences of the 9 to 5 members, it inspired the American classic 1980 film, 9 to 5. And golly, did that become a hit. Doing some of her own research on the 9 to 5 movement, Jane Fonda had the idea to make a movie about women office workers. After tons of research, interviews, and meetings with the founders of 9 to 5, Fonda, with the help of director Colin Higgins and writer Patricia Resnick, created the story 9 to 5, starring herself, Lily Tomlin, and Dolly Parton. The story revolved around 3 female office workers who decided to join forces and overthrow their sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot of a boss. The film was a box office sensation, raking in more than $3.9 million during its opening weekend in the United States. And not only was the film a big success, but its theme song 9 to 5, created by Dolly Parton herself, became an instant hit, winning tons of awards and becoming one of Parton's most iconic songs. But let's focus back on the film. 9 to 5 focused on these issues: gender equality, empowerment, abuse, sisterhood, justice, revenge, breaking stereotypes, courage, workplace balance, corporate culture, and feminism. But like I talked about in the beginning of this video, I want to focus on something else that not many people talk about. The thing that drew me to the 9 to 5 story was not the issues that were presented in the film, but the way the female leads overcame them. Let's start with the first leading lady we are introduced to in the film, Judy Burnley.
Hello? Hello?
When we first meet Judy, it is clear she is completely out of her element, wearing blues and pinks when everyone else is wearing grays, browns, and reds.
We're gonna need a special locker for the hat.
Excessively polite and timid towards others when there's no need, and seems to have a lack of knowledge in the office, Judy is a fish out of water. However, there is a reason why she is here and is like this. Judy's husband, Dick, left her for another woman, so Judy is forced into the workplace with no job experience of her own, and it is quickly evident she is overwhelmed in this strange new world. However, thanks to her new friends, Judy steps out of her comfort zone time and time again to prove her worth. When her friends are fighting, she is the one to talk some sense into them.
What about... Will you two shut up?
When their boss threatens to call the cops, she fights back.
Hold it right there.
When her ex-husband returns, she stands up for herself and rejects him.
Hit the road, Buster. This is where you get off.
Judy not only shows up for her friends, but also shows up for herself, proving she is resourceful, assertive, and strong.
Judy Burnley, please hold. Judy Burnley, please hold. Hello, Judy Burnley.
She is not the nervous, insecure newcomer from the beginning of the story, but a competent, empowered young worker who knows her worth. Next is Violet Newstead.
And I'm a widow with 4 kids. Jerry should never have died. I'd be better off. I could have divorced him.
From the start of the film, we quickly figure out she is a seasoned, hard-working, qualified office manager who has been overlooked time and time again for several years. She dreams of getting a promotion in the company she has worked so hard for. But even though she is very capable, far less qualified men take those promotions from her, including her own boss.
I remember when he was just a management trainee. In fact, I'm the one who trained him.
Not only that, but she is a single mother, juggling between work and family as her husband died a few years ago. All of this combined has slowly crushed Violet's dreams for a better future, and has caused her to doubt herself and her skills in the workforce, as she continues to be overlooked and underappreciated in the office. However, thanks to her newfound friendships, Violet gains the courage to challenge the system that is keeping her stuck. She confronts her boss when problems arise, and when the boss is accidentally kidnapped, Violet is put into a leadership position that consequently forces her to realize her capabilities as a leader.
Maybe we do have something to bargain with after all.
What is it?
An account book for Ajax Warehouse.
She is finally able to show her true potential, embraces her ability to lead, and creates a safe, vibrant environment for the entire staff. And by the end of the story, she gets the promotion that she has dreamed of for so long. Violet is not the silent, invisible office manager anymore, but the hardworking, intelligent leader who rose to the top.
Hey, we've come this far, haven't we? This is just the beginning.
And here's to the beginning.
I'll drink to that.
And last, but definitely not least, we meet our third lead,
Oh, good. She's back.
Dora Lee Rhodes. In the beginning of the story, we are told she is nothing more than a blonde bombshell who is having an affair with the boss.
Well, rumor has it that she is banging the boss.
But this is quickly debunked as we get to know Dora Lee a little better. Sure, she is a woman with a big smile and a colorful, sparkly personality, but she is not a brainless, dumb blonde who is after the boss. She has an amazing supportive husband, an incredibly kind heart, and an intelligent young mind. But because of this stereotype placed on her by her coworkers, Dora Lee feels isolated and misunderstood.
I'm as nice as I know how to be to every single person down at that office. Everybody treats me like a bastard at a family reunion.
She is unfairly judged for a stereotype that she did not ask for. No one takes her seriously, and time again, we see her battling against her boss's inappropriate behaviors towards her. However, thanks to an abrupt confrontation between herself and Violet, Dora Lee realizes she is not alone in her struggles and connects with her and Judy. And despite the disrespect she experienced in the workplace, Dora Lee chooses to forgive and prove the rumors were untrue. She stands up to the boss and rejects his advances.
If you ever say another word about me or make another indecent proposal, I'm gonna get that gun of mine, and I'm gonna change you from a rooster to a hen with one shot.
She helps change the workplace, earning respect from her coworkers, and she continues her friendship with Violet and Judy, creating a sisterhood that is beautiful inside and out. By the end of the film, Doralee overcomes the harassment and isolation, breaking the dumb blonde stereotype, and gains the courage to pursue her own dreams. Doralee is not a brainless, pretty object, but a smart, tough Southern woman who has the courage to do anything she sets her mind to.
Did you want a cup of coffee? Oh, sorry.
Each woman in this story had something to prove, something to overcome, a dream they needed to achieve. And instead of giving up on those dreams or blaming everyone else for their problems, they took action and made the appropriate steps to achieve their goals. Well, maybe not appropriate, but you get the point. And y'all, they had a big obstacle to face. The face being Franklin Hart Jr., our main villain of the story. Mr. Hart's actions and attitude represents the bosses that real-life women face in the workplace.
It is a jungle out there, but if we all work together, we can cut the balls off the competition, be sitting pretty right on top of the hill.
He was the boss who created the toxic work environment for his employees. He was the one who made Violet feel overlooked and invisible. The one who made Doralee feel attacked and alone. The one who made Judy fearful and overwhelmed. And that kind of discrimination and harassment is what forced our three leading ladies to not only address their own personal grievances, but also challenge the workplace and bring positive change within their company. In a way, I guess everyone should thank Mr. Hart, as without him, the women would have never had developed such a strong friendship and created a brighter, safer environment for their coworkers. And that's what made this film so great. A newfound sisterhood that overcame a great evil to bring positive change despite the odds. And though the film is so well written, I think the musical expresses this idea even more. Many years later, and after much back and forth, the film was finally adapted into a musical in 2009, written by the same woman, Patricia Resnick, and Dolly Parton, who wrote almost all the music and lyrics for the newly adapted story. And while the plot is basically the same with a few changes here and there, I think the musical exemplifies this theme of overcoming adversity so much more than the film did. And that's a compliment. If you are going to adapt a story from one form of art to another, it needs to be better in something. Whether that is a character, a theme, visual elements, or something else, there needs to be a solid, legit reason why there should be an adaptation. Especially if it's a musical of all things. Please keep this in mind when I talk about the TV show. What did I just watch? And I think Resnick and Parton did a fantastic job of adapting the 9 to 5 story. And how do they do that? Through the characters, their songs, and the connections in between. We still have all the core elements from the 3 main characters in the previous film, but each of their character arcs are explored even deeper in the musical. Let's start in the order we meet them in the opening number, 9 to 5.
Working 9 to 5 for service and devotion. You would think that I would deserve a fat promotion. Want to move ahead, but the boss won't seem to let me. I swear sometimes that man is out to get me.
Just like the film, Violet in the musical adaptation is the office manager for Mr. Hart, while also juggling being a single mother for her teenage son. She still embodies a no-nonsense, independent-driven woman that we see from the movie, and I think Violet shows a lot more growth in character in this version of the story. Don't get me wrong, the film did a great job with Violet's character, but a lot of her struggles seemed more internal than external. We don't get to see her battle with her issues as much compared to Doralee and Judy. Now, this could be because of her more closed-off personality, but in the musical, we get to see her battle with those internal conflicts a lot more thanks to the musical numbers. While she is shown to be pretty put together with a side of sarcasm and wit,
You gotta know who to trust, better know it in a hurry. No time for such a thing as your personal worries. Gotta grow, you gotta show, gotta keep it in tow around here.
we quickly see why she has to be the way she is with her numerous interactions with Mr. Hart. And while Violet does a good job standing up for herself, there is still a power dynamic that she cannot fight against because of the system she is working in. Even though she is more than capable of being in a leadership position, she battles with a lot of self-doubt, and not just in her capabilities as a worker, but also in her friendships. Violet is shown to not be very close to anyone in the company, seemingly strict and closed off. But when Judy comes into the picture, Violet lets her guard down. Compared to the film, Violet is much more hands-on with Judy, as she shows her the ways of the office. I would say they have a bit of a mother-daughter relationship, which I absolutely love.
You are so nice.
When Judy has no one, she has Violet. And when Violet's heart warms up to Judy, she becomes much more open to other friendships like Dora Lee. Though the two have a rocky start,
How could you believe I was sleeping with that worm?
Well, I mean, aren't you?
No, I don't even like him.
All right, so I made a little mistake.
Violet is quick to apologize and admit she was wrong.
I'm still waiting.
All right, I'm sorry.
Well, it ain't the sweetest apology I ever got, but it'll do.
Which opens her heart for not one friend, but two. And those two friends are the ones who show Violet that she deserves to rise to the top, that she is truly capable to be one of the boys.
It's my time to shine, and I'm feeling fine. This old gal's now one of the boys.
And not only does her heart open up to friendship, but also to romance.
Hey, Violet!
Oh, I think I hear my typewriter calling me.
Thanks for the heads up on the quarterly report.
My pleasure. Hate it when the numbers don't add up.
Yeah, well, you are the best.
Something that I absolutely loved being included in this adaptation was the creation of Joe, Violet's love interest. Joe was not in the film, so as a result, Violet did not have a romantic side plot. But I think this inclusion was absolutely necessary for Violet's character arc. Her husband died a few years ago, leaving her and her son behind. And while Violet has done an incredible job moving on and making a life for her and her son, Violet doesn't believe she deserves that kind of love anymore. She doubts her looks, her age, and her capability to love again. But Joe, through his skills, communication, and terrible jokes,
Hey, how about a date with me?
You?
Well, do you want a copy or an original?
shows Violet that she deserves to love and be loved. He is the one who helps Violet finally let go of her doubts.
Love can grow in the strangest places. Might find love in strangers' faces. Waiting just around the corner for all you know.
Because of these relationships, it gave Violet the courage to stand up and call out Mr. Hart for his mistreatment and abuse of power in the workplace. And as a result, she becomes the new CEO. Thanks to her skills, friendship, and love, Violet was able to achieve her dream and overcome the limitations she was put in and placed on herself. This musical exemplifies her strength, independence, and leadership. And not only that, but her soft romantic side as well. Her unyielding resolve to assert herself and uphold her principles has finally paid off.
There are no guarantees. Life is always a hit or a miss. But I truly believe I won't always be feeling like this.
Let's move on to Dora Lee.
9 to 5, as long as we're together, you and I can make it through this. They can't keep us down. We're just like loving. You hold on to me with telemedicine.
Dora Lee is also very similar to her character from the film, though we get to see a lot more of her. She's still the pretty, charismatic Southern woman that we all know and love. However, though it is shown Dora Lee is lonely in the film, with everyone gossiping about her behind her back, I think the musical does a very good job showcasing this unfortunate aspect even more, thanks to the musical numbers. While she is always kind to everyone and tries to make friends with the people around her, Dora Lee is always turned down. She even tries to confront others about it, but no one seems to give her a chance.
For a chance to prove my worth. 'Cause even backwoods Barbies get their feelings hurt.
What's so amazing though is that though we see how isolating Dora Lee's life is, we also get to see how resilient and strong she is. With her husband by her side, she always shows up for work, despite knowing what her coworkers think of her and how her boss treats her. And oh, we haven't even gotten to that yet. While Violet and Judy do experience their own issues with Mr. Hart, Doralee experiences are on a whole nother level. The way he speaks to her, verbally and physically harasses her, and yet through all of that, she continues to be a bright and positive woman. But she does have enough.
Listen, you're
Well, I can put up with your grabbing and chasing me around the desk because I need this job, but this is the last straw. I've got a gun out there in my purse. Because that's the way it was brought up, but I swear, you say one more word about me and I'll get that gun of mine and I'll change you from a rooster to a hen.
And once she's had enough, she speaks with Violet and Judy, who quickly realize she is not the dumb blonde that everyone thought she was. And I'm gonna say it again, but the sisterhood that comes to life between these three ladies is amazing, and I love it. While Violet and Judy have a more mother-daughter type of relationship, Doralee fits right in there, being kind of a big sister for the two of them. She is rational, smart, and level-headed.
No, I'm gonna turn myself in.
No. Let me go check on him and then we'll decide what to do.
She stands up and takes charge when Mr. Hart gets kidnapped, using her charm and confidence to change the workplace for the better. Everyone thought she was an incapable, brainless woman, but she proves time and time again that she is just as intelligent and competent as everyone else around her. Again, the film did a great job with Doralee's character, but we get to see so much more of her and her struggles and her incredible courage to stand up instead of being stepped on. The musical exemplifies her boldness, positivity, and forgiving nature that makes her beautiful inside and out. Doralee is proof that there's more to a woman than just her looks. And now Judy. Sweet, lovable Judy. Judy is someone who I think got the most changes in this musical, but they were really good changes. She is still quite similar to her character in the film, but her nervous, polite, shy personality from the movie is brought to a 10 in the musical, making her quite the funny character.
I've never really had a job in an office before. No kidding.
She's a lot more emotional and naive compared to her film counterpart, but that does not diminish her character. Again, Judy is going through a divorce with her husband Dick, and now must join the workforce to earn a living. She has to navigate a whole new life and is very overwhelming for her. She makes a ton of mistakes in the office, causing her to be yelled at, and goes through an emotional encounter with the man who left her behind, a man she thought loved her.
What to do and where to start. Things are falling all apart. Trying hard to move ahead, but keep losing ground instead.
But thanks to her new friends Violet and Doralee, she has shown that there's other ways to become a successful individual, and it doesn't have to be a homemaker. She can be a leader with efficient skills like Violet, or a fashionable, charming woman like Doralee. And going along with the crazy shenanigans that happen to them throughout the musical, Judy starts becoming her own person. Her eyes are open to the abuse she went through with her ex-husband, and gains the strength to say that enough is enough. This is her life, and she can do and become whoever she wants to be.
You used me, abused me, you cheated, and you lied. So get out and stay out. I'm taking back my life.
This musical exemplifies Judy's incredible transformation from lost to found. Judy is not the insecure, emotional.
Now repeat after me. I will not cry.
I will not cry.
Okay, she's still emotional, but that's okay. People pleaser she was from the beginning of the musical, but a determined, hopeful, confident young woman who wants to thrive and chart her own path in the world. In this musical, each woman shows different kinds of adversity. Violet, a widow and a full-time working mom, battling with self-doubt, and dealing with the emotional and mental pressure of working under a power-hungry boss. Dora Lee, a pretty Southern belle stereotyped, isolated, and judged by her coworkers and sexually harassed by her boss. And Judy, an insecure, divorced newcomer, struggling to gain independence from the man who was supposed to love her unconditionally. And yet, instead of wishing their troubles to go away, each one took the steps to handle their problems. They survived and came out victorious, and it's something to aspire to. What makes this musical so great is not watching these women struggle, but watching them not give up, watching them rise and figure out ways to overcome the abuse. I personally can't exactly relate to Violet, Judy, or Dorleen. I'm not a widow with a teenage son. I'm not a newly divorced woman, and I'm not a pretty Southern country singer. But I can see a little of myself in each of them. And I think it's because they feel human. They're not superheroes with crazy powers or supernatural beings from another world. They're everyday normal women like me who stood up for what's right, even when it was scary. They feel real, relatable, attainable, and anyone can relate to them and put themselves in their shoes. And not just women, everybody. Every person on this earth has gone through or will go through something hard. And to see these ordinary women overcome their hardships in their own special ways is so inspiring, encouraging. And it might give the person watching the courage to stand up and fight too. Just like the 9-to-5 movement challenged women to break the status quo. And before we get to my final thoughts on this topic, I need to mention one particular TV show that I think will prove my point even more. What happens when you take away all these amazing qualities in the story and in its characters and just make women ordinary, boring, bland, stereotypical women? Now, I was back and forth on mentioning this TV show because unfortunately there isn't much to talk about. However, I do think this TV show proves what happens when you take such an incredible idea and turn it into something so, I don't even know the word for it, just so bland. And I think this TV show really shows how easy it is to make women so stereotypical if you're not careful. And it becomes so much more obvious when the adaptation is based off of such a popular, amazing movie like 9-to-5 with such amazing, incredible characters like Violet, Judy, and Dorleen. Let me just talk about this show and you'll understand. The 9-to-5 TV show aired from 1982 to 1983. And then again in 1986 to 1988, and was a complete flop. The show itself was extremely hard to watch, and I was very disappointed. Everything fell off. The first episode I watched was from the first run of the show, and let me tell you, all three of the leading ladies were almost unrecognizable.
The Eiffel Tower, the Champs-Elysees.
That's Judy?
Sure. Hey, they're always
That's
looking for extra
Violet?
people.
Okay, wait.
If
The
you
characters
really
are a little
get-
different.
Maybe you can start. No, but I've got
Wait, it
Mr.
just
Hart.
occurred to me that
We're
Dorleen's
gonna
not
die
country.
here.
There's no country accent, there's no southern charm to her, it's just a normal city girl. So all three of the female characters are very different from the movie.
Those are my girls.
Well, you finally showed up.
That's our boss, Mr. Hart.
Why are they relying on their boss to get them out of jail? Okay. Violet wasn't the no-nonsense, intelligent woman I knew with the wit and sass I loved. I understand this show is supposed to be a sitcom, But Violet was too silly and too lenient to be the Violet that gained her leadership status in the original story. If you're going to make her funny, at least make her humor feel like Violet, because Violet can be so funny, but not whatever this is.
Herbie, how I love you, my dear son Herbie. This is your wedding night.
With Judy, it seemed the writers forgot that she had a character arc. Her terribly naive but sweet nature was turned up to a 10, or more like a 20 or 100. I mean,
obviously I'm not making myself clear. Okay, the three of us work together in an office. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. But let me ask you, like, how do you decide, who does what?
Oh, okay. Well, Violet here is our supervisor, but don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that she just stands around and watches.
Judy. What are you doing?
Judy felt way over the top, and honestly, she just seemed really stupid. Like, blonde stupid. And she isn't even blonde. I get Judy is supposed to be an empathetic, lovable snowflake, but not like this.
And the one they called Violet would rage against the ties that bind her. That bound her. That have bound her. That would have been divided. Judy!
Again, if she is supposed to be funny, at least make the jokes make sense for her character. And speaking of blonde,
Cheer, cheer to Seymour, my dear. Hope you are being a good conventioneer.
poor Dora Lee. While the writers forgot Violet's personality and Judy's character arc, they seem to have forgotten Dora Lee entirely. The once charming, confident Southern woman I came to know and appreciate became a pretty but forgettable character who truly lost her shine. Which wasn't that the whole point of her character in the original story, to break the stereotype that was placed on her in The Office?
He's so cute. And he's got your hair.
In fact, it seemed the writers, producers, or whoever was in charge of the show forgot the whole point of why 9 to 5 was created in the first place. They forgot why viewers loved these three ladies so much. The women from the original film, and later on in the musical, were well written and carefully crafted to make them relatable and genuine. But here, they are reduced to bland, one-dimensional characters. These are not the women that I have become inspired by. These are not the women that thousands of people have come to know and love. And it didn't change much in the remake they tried to pull off in 1986. In fact, the new show made everything worse.
Don't deny the feelings that have grown between us in the past week. Feelings that are strong and healthy. And even now are pulsating almost visibly inside of us, drawing us ever closer into a lifelong bonding of soul-sharing love.
Wow.
The setting was wrong, the conflicts were boring, the comedy was off, some of the original characters weren't even there. Judy seemed more like a Violet than a Judy. Dora Lee was a bit better but still quite forgettable. And who the heck is Martha?
Well, from now on, you say, oh, foofy. I gotta go. I love you. Kisses and hugs. And
If you turned on the TV and showed me this episode and said this is based off of the 9 to 5 movie, I would not believe you. There's no way. Because, I mean, even Violet's not in here. Mr. Hart's not in here. Roz is not on here. What really boggled my mind was how it kept getting renewed. Who looked at this show and thought, it'll get better if we change things up? I was in college by the time it got to its 4th season, and I was studying television and film production. One professor in TV screenwriting class actually used this show as an example of bad writing for television. Oh no. It was just so far removed from the original movie. The 9 to 5 TV show did not feel like 9 to 5 at all. There were so many fun, different ways they could have taken the show, and instead they didn't choose. They didn't choose any of them. Obviously, I can't choose either. Honestly, this show is a perfect example of what not to do when adapting an original story into a TV show. This is a perfect representation of what happens when you reduce characters into bland stereotypes. And isn't it ironic that this happened to the show that's supposed to be based off the 9-to-5 movement? A movement that was created to prove women had a place in society too, and to get women out of these female stereotypes that society had pressured them to be in. It's just honestly, wow. I think we need more inspiring characters like Violet, Judy, and Dorleen. One of these days I am going to get back on this topic. I just feel like all the victories that the original story had were for nothing. And I think that can explain the 9-to-5 movement too. Because while I applaud the 9-to-5 movement and its victories on changing society's view on women, I also want to acknowledge something that I'm starting to see since the 1980s. All the research that I've done, the articles I've read, the documentaries I've watched, the interviews I've listened to, I've been noticing this pattern of pessimism or negativity on the 9-to-5 movement's accomplishments that just don't make sense. And I at least want to acknowledge it and talk about it. Hi, Future Kim here. I just wanted to pop in here and say something. I don't think I'm making myself really clear about this, so I'm just gonna try to explain myself, I guess. When I talk about the negativity and the pessimism on this movement, I'm actually talking about what's going on within the movement. So yes, there's a lot of negativity in terms of people on the outside looking in on the movement. Yes, definitely, there's definitely that. However, I think there's more division and negativity within the movement. There seems to be this bitterness that has not left since the 1980s. Because in this whole video, I've been talking about this idea of overcoming your hardships and how freeing that is. And yet in this movement, I don't see that, at least not anymore. Remember in the beginning of this video essay, I talked about how whenever the topic of feminism or women's rights pop up, it's always so negative. It just seems that whenever I read any articles or watch any documentaries or listen to any interviews, it's always so bleak, or at least ends that way. I understand they're trying to make the ending very hopeful and uplifting and, telling, the women in the audience, you have a voice, like go out there and vote and fight with all you have, make your voice heard, make your dreams be seen, all this different stuff. But I feel very confused because I just watched like a full hour of women fighting for their rights and making a huge change in society. And now I'm watching these last couple of minutes and these young girls are saying that they're not getting paid, they're not being treated fairly because of their gender. So it's like, what, did we just go back to square one? Like I'm confused. People are always talking about how women are severely oppressed and that if women could just have more positions of power, more of a say in what they do with their bodies, have a voice so women could feel safe and protected, then things will be okay. But that it will never get better for women, ever, because women are victims. Women have no rights in society. And while I may agree on some talking points, I am really tired of hearing this idea that women are always going to be victims, especially when we just had this amazing movement only a few decades ago. I mean, it changed the workplace for the better, and not just the workplace, but society as a whole. From the family to culture to the workplace, women's lives, particularly in America, seem pretty good. And I hate hearing women talking about how things are so much worse today than back then, when the research shows that that is not true. Let me explain. Look at the original goals of the 9-to-5 movement when it first started. Equal pay, affirmative action, a greater role for minority women, ending sexual harassment, ending pregnancy discrimination, improving medical coverage, and creating awareness for women in the workplace. Based on all the research I've done, every single one of these goals has been covered by law. Equal pay, which was a federal law passed by President Barack Obama in 2009, was written to allow employees to sue for pay discrimination. It states that each paycheck with discriminatory compensation is a new act of discrimination, and allows employees to recover back pay for up to 2 years before filing a charge under the EEOC, affirmative action. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy issued Executive Order 10925 that required government contractors to take affirmative action. This order states to redeem the effects of discrimination and create new opportunities for those who have been denied in the past. Greater role for minority women. Everything I've listed above and what I am about to talk about below involves minority women. A woman is a woman, no matter her race. Ending sexual harassment. Unfortunately, because human beings are human beings, I don't think sexual harassment will ever go away, no matter how much we all want it to. But things like the #MeToo movement were great ways to bring awareness to this disgusting issue. I mean, sexual harassment was not even a concept back in the 1960s, so I think Western society has definitely improved on this fact. Ending pregnancy discrimination. There are 2 laws for this. One, the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, or PDA of 1978, which prohibits discrimination against pregnant employees in hiring, firing, promotions, pay, and benefits. And 2, the Pregnancy Workers Fairness Act, or PWF, which requires employers to provide reasonable accommodations to pregnant workers, which leads to improving medical coverage. The Affordable Care Act, or ACA, prohibits charging women more than men for the same level of coverage and prohibits denying women coverage due to pre-existing conditions. And as a side note, I will say the medical industry and how they treat women and their bodies sucks. Doctors all over the US are not taking women's health concerns seriously, so that can definitely be better. But my point is there are laws in place like the ACA to protect women in terms of money. But yes, there should be better, more affordable care to women, and there needs to be way more research done on the female body and mind. And finally, creating awareness for women in the workplace. I think there doesn't need to be a law for this. I think it's pretty clear through mediums such as art that there is an awareness towards women, like 9 to 5. And it feels like every time I go on social media or turn on the TV, I see something about women's rights every couple of minutes, so I think that's taken care of. Based on everything I just listed, it looks like everything is taken care of in terms of the law. The original goals of the 9 to 5 movement have been solved. Now, I'm not saying you can't have new goals, and I do think there are still some things that could be improved, but I think that comes down to an individual level and not a government level. Because not everything can be fixed by the law, no matter how much people want it to. People have to work on themselves in order to be good, outstanding citizens of society. And unfortunately, there will always be stupid people in the world who will harm others for their own gain. That will never go away. But I think the 9 to 5 movement did a very good job in taking care of the American in the American. I am an American. But I think the 9 to 5 movement did a very good job taking care of the women in America and just bringing awareness across the world. So we have these laws like the Fair Pay Act of 2009 or the #MeToo movement to help make women's lives easier. So what is there else to do? Why am I being told watching these documentaries and reading these articles that there are still issues that need to be fixed? Why are people claiming that women's rights are not resolved? What still needs to change in order for the movement to still be happening today? So in doing more research, I found that there is something called the Equal Rights Amendment, or the ERA. This seems to be one of, if not the only big deal that feminists claim is not resolved. The ERA is a proposed constitutional amendment that guarantees equal rights for all people regardless of sex. Apparently, this amendment has been debated for years. It was proposed in 1923, and at the time was known as the... How the heck do I say that? This amendment title name. Don't know. Its purpose is to prohibit sex discrimination in everything. Employment, wages, education, insurance, social security, etc., etc. Basically, this would clarify that sex discrimination violates constitutional rights. But it wasn't brought up again until 1972, and then had a deadline for ratification in 1979, which was then extended in 1982. However, the ERA was not ratified. Currently, many states have introduced bills to ratify the ERA, but on a country level, on a constitutional level, the ERA had a deadline, and it did not pass in its extended deadline. But you get the gist. The goal of the ERA, and further the 9 to 5 movement, would guarantee equal legal rights for all Americans as it would become a constitutional right. People believe that to have this amendment in the Constitution would once and for all protect women. But my question is, would it really? Would women truly be safe, respected, protected if the ERA was able to become a constitutional amendment? Could this decision make the 9 to 5 movement finally happy and move on? I don't think so. The older I've gotten, the more I've realized that most people don't actually care about the case they are fighting for, but the benefits that come with it. History has shown time and again that most people are after one of three things: money, power, or fame, or a combination of the three. Most people will do anything to feel on top of the world. So, despite any good intentions that this movement might have had in the beginning, I wouldn't be surprised if the movement has become blinded to their own case. They say one thing, then after that one thing is accomplished, there's suddenly another thing, a new thing that needs to be accomplished, because it's just as important as the previous thing. It's an ongoing process that never seems to end. Or at least, that's what I was seeing as I was doing my research. And if there's nothing else to fix or solve or anything, why does there need to be a movement? Like I said before, the 9 to 5 movement's goals are already legally fixed. Really, their only job should be maintaining the protection of women's rights at this point. But it seems that sometime between the 1990s to 2010s and beyond, the movement shifted and went outside of its original goals, creating problems that were not there in the first place, but suddenly are. Even going so far as involving itself in the LGBT+ movement, when those matters have very little connection to the women's movement. In fact, some of it is completely against the goals 9 to 5 fought for. And side note, what business does this organization have involving children?
If you ask 8th graders across the country, are you in the Constitution? They would all say yes. And then I have to tell the girls, I have some very bad news for you. No, you're not.
Instead of teaching them how to rise up to challenges, you are teaching them that the society they are living in is against them, and that there's nothing they can do about it. Like, why are you talking about this to literal children? I understand teaching history. That's fine. I think it's good to teach them this kind of history. But to say that because they are female, because they are women, because they are girls, they don't have freedom, they don't have rights, when history clearly shows otherwise? The movement that you stand for has apparently done nothing? I mean, if I had a woman come to my history class when I'm like 10 years old and they told me that because I am a girl, I have no rights, I would be so freaking scared and also just so confused. Because girl, I have not even gone past puberty at this point yet. Like, I have way more problems in my hands. And I'm just trying to get through school and do my math homework and get through my science tests. And also now being an adult woman, I would be so angry at this person for giving me such baseless fears. Because just by living life, I know that none of that is true. Even though, yes, I am a woman first, I am also an American. I am able to do whatever I want. I'm able to go get a job, any job I want. I can live wherever I want. I can buy whatever I want. I'm able to get an education. I am able to buy an apartment or buy my own home if I can afford it, but that's besides the point. I can wear whatever I want to wear. I can listen to whatever I want to listen to. I can read. I can drive. I mean, I can marry whoever I want. That's a huge plus. I mean, I don't even have to get married if I don't want to. I don't have to have kids if I don't want to. If something terrible happens to me, I have family. I have friends. I have the government to back me up because legally they can back me up. So just by living, I know that this is not true. I have rights. I have freedom in this country. So to have a woman walk into a classroom and then just tell girls this, like...
That's weird. That's weird. kind of weary me out.
Here's a question. Why are we raising children to become the next generation of victims when instead we should be raising the next generation of victors? I mean, isn't that the whole point of feminism too? The whole point of the 9-to-5 movement? Making sure that women are not victims, that they overcome their adversities in the workplace and family and whatever. Like, isn't that the whole point?
Not that feminism means that women have to take over, but it means coming into your own. It means having agency. The women began to feel they had agency over their jobs, their workplace, and their lives.
If there are problems that need to be addressed, then let's talk about solutions and how to handle these issues. Not go to schools and tell little girls that they have no freedom and spreading fear while you're smirking about it. Like, I am just so tired of adults bringing children into adult conversations when they haven't even passed puberty yet. I just needed to put this somewhere in the video because that is just ridiculous. Why the heck are we involving children?
I don't like that. I'm done.
So my question is, has the movement forgot its original purpose? Have they forgotten why it was created in the first place? Because it seemed like the movement stopped being about women and women's rights and more about everything else. Because truly, what happens when these last sets of amendments like the ERA or something else are put into law? Will women finally be happy and celebrate and move on? Of course, I can't answer that question because I don't know. I don't know these women. I don't know their hearts or minds. But based on everything I've seen, I just don't think so. There is always going to be something that will not satisfy the 9-to-5 movement, or more accurately, the postmodern feminist movement. Unless these women find peace within themselves, they will keep going, no matter who they ignore or hurt along the way. Which I think is the opposite of what 9-to-5 stood for, what the 9-to-5 story stood for, what Violet, Judy, and Dora Lee stood for. Because the thing that these characters did that the 9-to-5 movement isn't doing is moving on. These women were victims who became survivors to tell the tale with grace and dignity. And I don't think the 9-to-5 members have found the strength to do that yet. A couple of years ago, I was going through some not great stuff. I was feeling very alone. I was feeling very stuck. And one day I was listening to this random musical theater playlist, and the song Get Out and Stay Out came on. I completely just broke down, sobbed. That song has helped me get through some really, really hard times in my life. The lyrics encompassed all of my thoughts, my feelings, my wishes, my wish to break free, my wish to be a change, make a change in my life. I was tired of the crap I was going through or was being put through. I didn't want to be a victim anymore, or not feel like a victim anymore. It's not a good feeling, guys. I wanted to be the one to take charge of my life. I wanted to tell life that I wasn't going to be pushed around anymore. I was going to be the one to make the calls, make the choices, be my own voice. And of course, that is easier said than done, but that was the starting point that has gotten me to a much better place. I have overcome so much, and that feels really good to say out loud. And of course, I didn't do it by myself. I had people around me that truly helped me. But I made those choices. I took that call. I did that for myself. I did that for me. And I think that's what 9-to-5 stands for. The 9-to-5 story is a brilliant example of what true strength is, especially in particular with women. And I think that's what the 9-to-5 movement used to stand for, or are still standing for. I'm just now very weary of them after all the research I've done. And even though I've had my gripes and confusion and have felt pretty discouraged from all the reading and the watching and the listening I've done on this organization, the 9-to-5 organization, I felt and still feel so patriotic It was truly amazing to watch a group of women in both the story and in history stand up and defy the odds that were stacked against them. Watching these real-life women stand up and fight for their voices is incredible. Because of them, I don't have to go through what these women went through, and I am so grateful to them. I just wish I could understand this pattern that I keep seeing. There's just so much complaining about society as a whole. I see so many women insulting other women just because of different points of view, and oh my gosh, the blaming. There's so much anger and just so much pointing the finger at men in particular, acting like men are to blame for everything. It's just not healthy. To me, all this complaining is not what 9 to 5 stands for. Genuinely, 9 to 5 would not be the classic it is today if it had all of this complaining and blaming and insulting. Violet, Judy, and Dorlee found solutions to their problems and worked together and pushed against the status quo with dignity, modesty, and grace. If they were written like how the TV show wrote them, as bland, boring, forgettable characters, or on the opposite spectrum, made them loud and whiny and just immature, if they were written to an extreme on neither side of that spectrum, they would not be the lovable characters that we know today. They would not be inspiring. They would not feel human. Audience members, more likely than not, would not be able to connect with them and the story. But because they are written like real human beings, because they had depth, and because they are written to be overcomers in their story, that's what makes them so inspirational. That's what made the 9 to 5 story so popular and such a classic. To me, this is what we should strive for. 9 to 5 proves that there will always be hardships in your life, but you have a choice. And I don't know about you, but I choose to be a part of the story of overcomers.
I'm Evan Goldman. I live at 224 West 92nd Street, in the heart of Manhattan.
Wow. It has taken me a very, very long time to make this video, and I am so glad to finally have it done. I think the reason why it was so hard to write this essay is, well, 1, there is a lot of material to go over, and 2, the story is based off of history, and I just felt like I had to include this event for the sake of context and because it ties into the main theme that I wanted to talk about. But because I did that, I felt like I had to state some opinions as well on this topic, and that got me overthinking and it just became a whole mess. To me, this video essay has too many ideas and just not enough mental power to go through with them. But I have learned a lot with this essay and what to do and what not to do, so hopefully for the next one, I'll be better. I'll do better. I do hope my point of view makes sense, but please know again that everything that I wrote is for fun and is backed up by research and tons of overthinking. If you do have a different opinion on something, that is completely fine. We all have different experiences and they are all valid and should be shared. But this video essay is meant to be a fun study on the 9 to 5 story and its history, so it is definitely not perfect. And I'll probably one of these days go back and look through all this information again and maybe tackle this topic again. I don't know, but I'm just so glad to be done. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for listening to my opinions on this topic. I think most people would have a hard time with these types of topics as people are so particular these days, so it means a lot you got to the end of this video. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. See you next time.